This is a tsundere, and so is this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and by now you probably get the point. This trope is one of the most prevalent in all of anime. So what is it that separates characters like Kozuki Kallen or Rin Tosaka from Claire Harvey and Naruse Mio? Now I assume some of you will say the difference is how well written they are, and here, you get a cookie, Sherlock. But what is it that makes a good tsundere good and a bad tsundere bad? And of course, a lot of this will be subjective, but for the most part, to understand what makes a good tsundere, I think we should focus on a single character. And what would make for a better example than the best tsundere of the last few years? The second best tsundere of the last few years, Eris Greyrat. It's no secret on this channel that I like the way Mushoku Tensei writes and develops its characters. In fact, it's probably the video that got most of you here in the first place. And to understand the video you're watching right now, it's important to understand how Mushoku develops characters. So here's the short version. Character has flaws, they realize they need to change, they try to change, fail to change, keep trying, keep failing, they realize they've failed to better themselves and all their effort was for naught, and at this point they either have a very small breakthrough or an existential crisis. It's like they're trying to walk up a flight of stairs, but they're blindfolded with their legs tied and balancing a Ming Dynasty vase on top of their head. All this to say, improving yourself is not an easy task. While most stories have a character either change right after realizing they need to, or figure out that change is hard so they go cry in a corner, Mushoku just keeps it real with you. It says, yes, you can change, but at the same time it keeps showing you just how hard it can be. So, is that all you need to have a good tsundere? Well, yes and no. It's a good starting point, but I wouldn't say that's all there is to it. So, let's get back to Eris. She is impulsive, brash and prideful, with a softer side once you get to know her. Add the red hair, rich family and the fact she wields a sword and sometimes fire magic, and she sounds just like any other tsundere. And yes, she is. I never said she isn't one. But tropes are neither good nor bad. It's all about how they're used. And while Eris falls into this trope, the story builds upon that foundation to make her so much more. And there are a few ways it does that. The first one isn't all that uncommon, but still important. A character's behavior should be contextualized by their background and circumstances. In this case, Eris was a spoiled brat, who was never corrected on her behavior. And like most kids, she likes to mimic the people she admires. It just happens that the people she admires aren't always the most admirable. But this is to varying degrees done with most tsundere. Either they're spoiled because they were born to a rich family, or some sort of trauma made them close themselves off from others. So even when we're given reasons behind their behavior, quite often it feels fake. They lack any sort of nuance. In any and every circumstance, they are tsundere, nothing more and nothing less. And now comes the most important thing to making a good tsundere, or a good take on any overdone character trope, and that would be self-awareness. While Eris is a tsundere, she's not limited by the trope she was inspired by, but instead, the trope is used as a starting point to branch her character out from. She's dynamic. Her mannerisms and behavior change when she's around different people and in different circumstances. For example, she's a lot more mild-mannered when her grandfather's around. She starts avoiding behavior she thinks Rudy would call her out for, and when outside her comfort zone, her short fuse gets even shorter. What all this means is that she was written as a self-aware character. She is aware of how she behaves and how others react to it, and so she adjusts her behavior depending on how she wants to be perceived. And this is one of the most important things you need to create a layered character. Does a character get to reflect on their actions, therefore acting like a human, or are they acting more like mindless zombies controlled by the author? These things can often be overlooked, especially when an author is more concerned about getting from point A to point B instead of what makes sense for the character to do. And that's why a lot of tsundere are just that. They're always playing the role of the tsundere. They have to act cold, then soften up, then slap the protagonist a few hundred times and call him an idiot, and repeat this until they get confessed to. And then their trauma or whatever reasons they had for putting up a front just vanish. The author didn't start from a trope and then develop the character. The way they develop the character is the trope, and that's why a lot of tsundere just blend together. It's because they aren't characters, they are just tropes. But by making Eris self-aware, she gets to be her own character, while staying true to the tsundere archetype. And this is what makes the interactions between her and Rudius interesting, because she gets to reflect on how she behaves and realize she needs to change. And because she got to learn from Rudius that she needed to think things through more. And the fact Mushoku writes layered characters made it so that for the same reasons, she also influenced him to become more assertive, just like her. All of this makes it so that despite being a tsundere, she is so much more. If she was just a tsundere, she wouldn't have left Rudius at the end of season 1. Her leaving is something that could only happen because she's allowed a moment of self-reflection. When Rudius used the Eye of Foresight to defeat her in swordsmanship, the one thing she took pride on being better than him, she was devastated, and from then on she felt insecure, like she was getting left behind. She couldn't help when he was arrested, or with his father, or saving his sister, and the Orsted fight was the final nail in the coffin. She had grown too dependent on Rudius, so as much as she wanted to, if she stayed by his side, she would always feel lesser, like a burden, and so she had to leave. But powerful character moments like these can only happen when authors let their characters be characters, and not just objects in a story, required to act within very specific parameters. She isn't equipment on Rudius's inventory. She isn't there to fill out a roster of character tropes, or to have her moment and slowly fade to the background. She's her own character. And that's why Eris Greyrat is more than just a tsundere. Thanks for watching, and without further ado, I'm Ayvhel, signing out.